Amazon, Dell, AT&T, 25% of executives admitted that they hoped employees would just, quit. And I can prove it. Look, your boss says it's about collaboration and company culture, but here's what's actually happening. I analyzed data from dozens of research papers, and what I found will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about return to office mandates. By the end of this video, you'll understand the 5 real reasons companies want you back, and trust me, it's way more calculated than you think. Let's start with the most controversial one. Return to office mandates are layoffs in disguise.
Look, I think return to work is a fantastic way to get people to quit.
Here's how it works. In 2024, 90% of companies plan to implement return to office policies. Sounds reasonable, right? Except here's the kicker. 25% of C-suite executives and 18% of HR professionals openly admitted they hope some employees would voluntarily quit because of these mandates. This isn't speculation. This is from a Bamboo HR survey of over 1,500 managers. Think about that. A quarter of the people making these decisions are actively hoping you'll just leave. Why would they do this? Simple math. If you quit, they don't have to pay severance packages, deal with unemployment insurance, file WARN Act notifications for mass layoffs, and they don't have to handle the PR nightmare of firing thousands of people. Dell figured this out. They told remote workers, come back to the office or you can stay home, but you'll never get promoted, you'll never get a raise, and you'll be first on the chopping block in layoffs. The Register called it a stealth layoff program. Amazon, after their 5-day mandate, 91% of employees reported being dissatisfied. Coincidence? I don't think so. Companies are using return to office as a get out of blame free card. They get to reduce headcount without the bad press, the legal implications, or the severance costs. The next reason is control and power. Here's what kills me about the whole we need better collaboration and culture excuse. A 2024 study of S&P 500 firms found that managers use RTO mandates to reassert control over employees and blame employees as a scapegoat for bad firm performance. Translation, when things go wrong, it's easier to blame employees for working from home than to admit the company's strategy sucked. This is about power dynamics, and a lot of companies have a fear of losing power. When you're at home, you have agency and freedom. Your manager can't just walk up to your desk and interrupt you. They can't do impromptu meetings. They can't physically see you working. And for old school managers, if they can't see it, it doesn't exist.
It pisses you off when I say you need a babysitter. But when I go downstairs right now, people will be sitting down. They're playing on their phones. They're not making calls. Babysitter, 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 babysitter. If I worked here for a month, you would either quit or make a lot of money.
Here's the thing though, study after study shows remote workers are actually more productive. A Stanford study found 71% of employees feel more productive at home. Why? There's no office politics, there's no one stopping by your cubicle, there's no performative busyness, but productivity isn't really the point, control is. The next reason is real estate and the sunk cost fallacy. Okay, this one is massive and nobody's talking about it clearly enough. Companies are locked into these commercial leases that can last 10, 20, even 30 years or more. Right now, across America, office vacancy rates are sitting at nearly 20%. That's like unprecedented. And real estate is the second biggest line item on most companies' balance sheets, especially the CFO and the COO. You got to think of it this way. When they see the building as their second biggest line item, they see something that's not being used and it's kind of going to waste. When your workforce is at home, you're literally paying millions for empty buildings. You've also got ping pong tables, gyms, foosball tables, cafeterias, all sitting unused. And these are all perks that companies invested a lot of money into, and they're just not being utilized. And to them, it's a waste of money. And obviously it is. Boston could lose over $1 billion in property tax revenue over 5 years from vacant offices. Commercial property accounts for 36% of Boston's total general revenue. In New York City, a staggering stat is that commercial real estate drives 76% of property tax revenue. So here's the calculation. Would you rather cut your lease and go fully remote, saving on electricity, water, cooling, cleaning, or force everyone back and justify to your shareholders that the building is being utilized? Most companies choose the latter, not because it makes operational sense, but because it makes balance sheet sense. The next reason is the generational mindset gap. This one's more human, but it's real. Senior executives who have been commuting for 30 to 40 years have a fundamental bias. I suffered through it, so should they. It's the same mentality that made older generations say, I paid for college by working part-time, when tuition has increased 1,200% since 1980. These executives believe FaceTime equals commitment. They think mentorship only happens in person. They're convinced that company culture will crumble without physical presence. But here's what the data says. Hybrid workers report the same levels of connection and engagement as in-office workers. The only difference, hybrid workers are happier, less stressed, and less likely to burn out. The World Economic Forum found that hybrid work is best for psychological health and innovation, not full remote, not full office, but hybrid. But try explaining that to someone who's been doing the same commute since 1985. To them, remote work isn't real work.
Fucking Zoom, and you were doing the following, okay? Looking at your mail, sending texts to each other about what an asshole the other person is, okay? Not paying attention, not reading your stuff, and if you don't think that slows down efficiency, creativity, creates rudeness, and stuff, it does, okay? And when I found out that people were doing that.
And the last biggest reason comes down to the urban economic machine. This is the big one nobody wants to say out loud. Cities are dependent on you coming into the office. When you work from home, you're not taking public transportation as frequently. You're not buying gas and getting oil changes as frequently. You're not eating at downtown restaurants. You're not grabbing after work drinks. You're not using parking garages as much. You're not patronizing dry cleaners, coffee shops, food trucks. During COVID, this created a domino effect. I remember going back to my local pizza place after lockdown. I had gone there with coworkers pre-COVID for many years. And when I had come back, the owner was actually very excited to see us. Was very excited to see me. And I'm not saying like he was like a complete dick to me before COVID, but he definitely wasn't super excited. I had asked him how the restaurant did during COVID, during those 2.5 years we were working from home. And he had opened up and he said that the business really struggled because he depends on the corporations that are in the local area. And this was like a semi-small town, or I would say like a medium-sized town. So they're very dependent on all the corporations that, work in the area. And they said that their revenue was way down during those 2.5 years and they almost had to close down, which is kind of crazy, but it makes total sense. And commercial property taxes make up 20 to 40% of total property tax revenue in major cities. When office buildings lose value, cities lose revenue. And when cities lose revenue, they cut services or raise residential property taxes. When downtown businesses close, crime also tends to increase. San Francisco is projected to lose $150 to $200 million annually by 2028. Washington, D.C. faces a $464 million shortfall over 3 years. This isn't about your productivity. This is about keeping the entire urban economic ecosystem functioning. And guess who's lobbying the hardest for RTO mandates? Real estate developers, commercial landlords, and city governments. People aren't actually showing up as much. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Despite all these mandates, companies increased required office time by 12% from 2024 to 2025. Actual office attendance only increased about 1 to 3%. People are coffee badging, showing up just long enough to swipe their badge, and then leaving by lunchtime. 45% of employees said they comply with a 5-day mandate. 41% would start job hunting, and the other 14% would outright quit. And here's the kicker. Remote and hybrid job listings are only 20% of total listings on LinkedIn, but they get 60% of all applications. The market has spoken. Workers want flexibility. Companies that enforce strict return to office mandates have 13% higher turnover. Gartner found that nearly 3/4 of HR leaders say RTO mandates have caused tension inside their organizations. So what does this all mean? The return to office push isn't about collaboration, culture, or productivity. It's about stealth layoffs, getting you to quit without severance, control with old management styles reasserting dominance, real estate by justifying massive sunk costs, the generational bias, I suffered, so should you, in urban economics, keeping the commercial real estate machine running. Now, I understand the real reasons why executives don't tell you why they really want you back in the office, because to be honest, that'd be a very confusing message. Could you imagine telling your workforce that we need you back in the office to justify real estate values, and because they want to control you? That message would not go over well. And it's much, much easier to tell employees that they want better collaboration. They want to get back to the culture it was. It's just an easier, clearer, more politically correct answer. And the executives making these decisions, they have different incentives than you do. They're worried about balance sheets, stock prices, and city tax revenue, not whether you're actually more productive at home. Here's my take. The companies that figure out hybrid work, giving people autonomy while maintaining connection, those are the ones that will win the talent war in the long run. The ones forcing everyone back 5 days a week, they're going to keep bleeding talent to competitors. If your company just announced an RTO mandate, ask yourself, which of these 5 reasons is really driving it? Because I guarantee you, it's not what they're telling you in that all-hands-on meeting. Drop a comment. Are you dealing with an RTO mandate right now? What's your company's official reason versus what you think is the real reason? I read every comment. If this opened your eyes, hit that like button. It tells YouTube to show this to more people who need to hear it. If you've gotten value out of this video, feel free to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.